I love showing up for this and having no idea what we're doing.
Everybody does.
Makes me happy.
Hello and welcome to today's episode of the A-List, where I am joined by your third favorite doctor, Dr. Ben Stevens. Third favorite doctor show. Writer, producer, actor, and a whole plethora of other things that I'm sure we're going to get into today. But welcome to the show. Thanks for coming by.
Thanks for having me, man. Dude, I'm really happy to be here. It's going to be fun.
Yeah. We're going to play charades.
Perfect.
And Yahtzee.
Awesome.
Ben has no idea why we're here. We're actually not going to play Yahtzee or charades that I've planned anyway. But we are.
I brought my spare Yahtzee. Don't worry.
I do.
Travel.
What is your favorite thing about Yahtzee? And I'll say, let's go 3, 2, 1. Favorite thing about Yahtzee. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Sound of the cup.
Yahtzee. I like winning. So
I love the sound of the cup. Anyways, Yahtzee aside, I wanted to chat with you and ask you about your film journey and where you're at today and where that started for you, and because you do wear a lot of hats. You've been a practicing chiropractor, physiotherapist, bodybuilder, body trainer, fantastic husband and dad, motorcycle rider. You've got a plethora of things, like I said, going on. When did the film bug get you?
probably when I was a kid, like the vast majority of people, in that there comes a point where you just admire everything you see on the screen, and you kind of start. I couldn't say a specific day, but you start picturing yourself there. You start enjoying the idea. I mean, we all did it. We saw something on screen, and then we went away and kind of played like what we just saw on screen with our friends, or did something like that, right? And so, I was no different. I watched, George of the Jungle, and then I would pretend I was George of the Jungle, right? Or I would watch Power Rangers and then pretend I was a Power Ranger. I don't remember the names of any of them, so don't ask. But yeah, I mean, it was probably when I was a kid is when I really started visualizing myself doing it, and that kind of deeply planted seed got planted, and yeah, it's been there ever since. Didn't start actually doing it until much later, but always knew I wanted to.
What was the permission you gave yourself, or what was the gates opening where you did start doing it?
It was a really stressful situation, to be honest. So it was only 2 years ago. So I haven't been doing this that long. I've been very busy since I started, but it was the pandemic starting was really the kind of spark that lit the fire for me. And a big part of it was I was in clinical practice. I'd been doing it for a decade, and really was just absolutely fried out on it. And a big part of it was my niche within clinical practice was, for lack of a better phrase, kind of the brain. I didn't have some unique skill set. I was the guy that other chiropractors, physical therapists, whoever would send their people to, because I needed to figure some complex stuff out. And it was becoming all-encompassing and the entire part of my identity. And I just kind of sensed something was wrong. I didn't want to be doing it anymore. I loved the topic matter, didn't love the job. And I was just starting to get stressed, even though things were going well. And that, to me, that was a sign that things weren't kind of aligned with who I really wanted to be in my life. And so when the pandemic hit, everything shut down. And for the first time in my many years, I kind of felt relief. And I know a lot of people felt that. I remember thinking like, oh, thank God, a few weeks off with no guilt associated with it, because I was like, well, there's a pandemic, I guess I'll go home, right? And I overwork a lot of the time, and that became a habit. And then during those few weeks off, I kind of started going, I don't know if I can go back. My wife to this day would say, I didn't think you were ever going to go back to the clinic when the pandemic hit, because I could see the shift in you. And so I started searching for all these other things, and still wasn't doing a very good job of being honest with myself about who I really was and what I really wanted to do, which was acting. And so I landed on academia again, because I was just naturally very good at academia. So I was, close to a straight A student, a Dean's List student most of my life, with much less effort than I saw a lot of my peers putting in. So to me, it was kind of an easy way out of clinical practice. And so I reached out to one of the supervisors at the local university that was doing some research on things that I liked, and said, hey, I'd like to do a PhD. And he went, perfect. We've got all these big, cool projects going on in realms that I really liked that were tightly associated with my areas of expertise. And I went, this is amazing. And he went, okay, you got to apply, you got to do this, you got to do this. That was in April of 2020. It took about 3 or 4 months for that whole process of getting all my previous academic records, I got recommendations from the president of both of my previous universities because they both knew me by name. And I had just overdone this application. And it was August of 2020. I was sitting in front of my computer and I had all the stuff, and all I really had to do was literally hover and click on submit. And I found this like anxiety attack coming on. And I'm not anxious. Like, I'm one of the least anxious people I know. I could sleep through anything. And I found myself just like heart pounding out of my chest. And this feeling I got was just like, this isn't it, dude. Like, this is just your reason to deviate away from what you're currently doing because you know it's not right. But this isn't the thing. And so I kind of went, okay, well, I have to do it today anyway. The deadline's today. So I kind of went, even if it's not it, whatever. Hit submit. Went away and just couldn't sleep for like 2 weeks. Wow. And I remember going like, God, what is this? Like, oh my God, I really can't handle this right now. And I kind of all of a sudden felt pretty lost. And so over the next few weeks, I spent time exploring what are the things I really, really want to do and I really enjoy doing and the things that feel like they're fundamental to who I am, and slowly dialed it back to performing in some way and acting and all these things about show business and art that I had never had the chance to express from when I was a really young kid because I was always lost in science and academia. And about 6 weeks later, I had this assault bike, like an Airdyne bike at home, and it broke. So I put up an ad I put up a feeler on Facebook. Does anyone have the tools to fix this? I can't figure out how to fix this thing. The guy that had accepted me into the university was then a Facebook friend, and he said, yeah, I've got the tools, why don't you come over to my house? Instant anxiety attack again. I'm going, oh God, this is not good. Every time I even think about university now, I'm good at it, I'm getting anxious. But then I went to his house, and this was fall of 2020, and he said, I don't think you should do this PhD right now. And I was like, what? And he goes, nothing's happening. We're not allowed to do research. All the stuff I had lined up has lost its funding. He goes, I think you should delay it. And I kind of went, okay. Like, I was super excited about it. And then I literally went home, and within about 2 hours, I admitted to myself finally that acting was really what I wanted to do. And that night, I signed up for every single acting class in the Okanagan. I was at 7 to 10 acting classes a week because what he had encouraged me to do was to delay by a year. And he essentially said, you can file the paperwork, you can delay for a year, and then your start date will just automatically start next year. And so I went home and I said, I've got a year to figure out if this is actually who I am, if this is actually what I want to do, if I want to be involved in show business, if I want to be that person for the rest of my life, I've got a year to figure it out. And I'm not going to do it one day at a time. I'm going to overload it in my typical style and just go hard. And literally within the first 2 or 3 classes, I went, okay, I'm in. Like, I'm done. And I haven't stopped since. Here I am.
Oh, that's wild. And to have had a very successful, deep, I'm assuming meaningful career.
Yeah, very.
And then to essentially walk away.
Yep.
Right?
I haven't practiced since the end of 2020.
Wow. So since accepting and taking on acting,
yeah.
I've had the fortune of watching this career blossom. So that started where, in short film and
anything I could get my hands on, honestly. One of the things that really led me to understanding that this is what I wanted to do was I was heavily involved in clinical education. So I traveled all around the world teaching other people certain nuances about their job and how to be better at it. And I always found myself loving the performance and loving actually getting up and entertaining people, with the side effect being they also learned while they were there. And so as soon as I came to this, I had a few things that were peripherally related in the kind of commercial world related to health that I had already started doing anyway. And then it just became a matter of getting involved in everything. I took every class. I signed up for OSIF, the Okanagan Society of Independent Film or Filmmakers, did everything, and started with a couple of short films, started with trying to produce some stuff, did a little bit of writing, did some improv classes with you, demo reel, any and all of it. I essentially went like, what's on the menu? I'll take one of everything, and anything and everything that I could. And that was, yeah, I couldn't imagine starting any other way. I see other people that really, really want to make it happen, and they're not actively doing anything about it. And I go, I would lose my mind. Because I feel like there's never been anything so important that I want to put so much effort into that I have a hard time believing it's important to someone if they're waiting, if they're just sitting. Because to me, it's so much easier to just go, what are all these things? I can do all of them, and if I have to, I'll stop. If I have to, I'll dial back, which I've had to sometimes. But I started with anything and everything I could get my hands on.
That seems to be something that I've would acknowledge and know about your personality, that there's folks that are potential energy and there's folks that are kinetic energy, and you're a very kinetic person. Does that run in your family? Like, I'm sure you kind of, just by the way you explained your academia, you've probably always been this person.
Yeah, I am. There's one side, it's two sides of the same coin, one being that I can't not put immense amount of energy into things that I really want. The other side of that coin is I can't put any energy into things that I don't want. I'm like a horribly just tantrum throwing little kid when it comes to certain things, where I'm just like, oh my God, this is torture to me. And so, yes, I feel like I do have a certain amount of constantly wanting to do things, but I think a lot of that is just because I've developed the habit since I was a teenager of constantly aiming at what I really, really want. And as soon as I'm not aiming at what I really, really want, I find myself not doing the things that you seem to have noticed about me, which is the constant movement and the constant actually doing something. There's been times of my life where I haven't had that happening, and it's almost always been because I haven't been looking at the target, I haven't been looking at the thing. The target blurs or it disappears. And so you've probably got that perception of me only because you have known me in the film industry. If you knew other realms of my life, you'd probably be like, he's just a dude. But once the once the kind of shine fades, I do find it hard, to push for those sorts of things. Fortunately for me, I think I have built a lot of habits and reflexes that make me do that. So even in academia, I started the PhD, and I did all 4 or 5 years worth of courses in my first semester, because I was just like, why not? I've got the time. I know that I've got to get it out of the way anyway. And a lot of people go, you're pushing way too hard. And I remember going like, you're just used to going slow. I'm not used to going that slow. And, and I got straight A's, and I had one teacher tell me I should have been teaching the courses by the end of it. And I'm not saying that to brag. I'm just saying when I want to do it, I can do it. But when I don't want to do it, I'm incapable of it, right? And so I think on the surface it probably looks like I do a lot, but a lot of it's because I'm either doing something or I'm not. I don't have a half-assed effort in me, so I have to just not do a lot of things that a lot of other people do.
When you mention when the shine wears off, it becomes hard, is there anything in acting that has lost its luster or had a speed bump for you, or being a little bit more difficult to rise to that challenge?
To be fair, I think I'm still in the process of self-discovery in a really big way, which I think every human is. And I'd never expect that to end. I just think there was a time when I all of a sudden admitted to myself that I essentially had a whole side of me that went unexplored. And so almost everything I've done so far in the film world has been a form of just growing to understand myself and peel back some layers. And so even things that I haven't been particularly excited about, I've learned immense amounts about myself, because I now know I'm not excited about that. I couldn't have known. Even in the film world, when I first started, I thought I wanted to have a certain persona on screen, wanted to look a certain way, be perceived a certain way, do certain types of things. And then it didn't take long for me to go, you know what, I kind of enjoy all of it. This is all really fun for me. And so I have yet to go through the kind of contraction of it all. I think I'm still at this phase where I just taking the shotgun approach, doing a little bit of everything, doing a lot of everything as much as I can, but I have yet to kind of do repeated amounts of the same things enough to go, I don't want to touch that.
Yeah.
Right? The only things that I've done that with have really been things that I just don't have the time, or my lifestyle doesn't line up. I've wanted to do stand-up comedy, And I'm just going like, I go to bed at 10 o'clock every night,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And I go, it's going to take a big upset of my life to go do that when it's not necessarily exactly what I want to be spending my time right now doing, right? So I've got those where I go, it's not perfect for me because of some big thing, but it's such a huge menu of stuff you could be spending your time on that I don't feel bad about that. I kind of go, yeah, I can come back to it.
Is there anything that's out of reach or just beyond grasp that you're gunning for next?
I think there comes a certain point when you have to really double down on your strengths. And I'm starting in the last probably, I guess, year. I mean, I've had well over 100 auditions, and almost every single audition that I've got a pin or a callback or I've gotten the role has been comedic. It's been something where I'm making people laugh, and that's clearly the intent of it. And so for me, the next phase, is to hopefully go and start doubling down on that a little more. I have some weaknesses I know I need to overcome, and I will use the process of everything I'm doing to try to overcome those. But I'm looking at things like comedy and going, I kind of need to start doubling down on this. I enjoy it a lot. People clearly enjoy watching it from me a lot compared to other things I've done. And so it's just looking for more and more opportunities to do training, to be in things, to demo, show up at classes, help other people create their stuff, whatever it might be. It's starting to, sink into comedy a little more. And writing, but that writing has been geared at comedy.
And that's such a cool thing to learn about you because, I got to watch the early short films that you were doing that were action-based and,
A lot of action
pretty,
stuff.
right? A lot and
Yeah.
fairly serious. And you certainly fit the role there, in terms of the branding and had just such a great, strong presence on screen for that. And of course, I got to know your comedic side, not just in improv class, but just in general as we've gotten to know each other.
Yeah.
And I would, I would agree. You have a great, acute sense of comedy and a wonderful humor to you. So that's neat to hear you say that that's something that you would dive deeper into.
You know what? I think my natural way is generally quite calm, and so I think a lot of the time we just don't tend to associate that with comedy. But for me, there was a kind of, I naturally, as soon as I got on camera, I just knew if I kind of used some of the techniques to just be more me on camera, I would have kind of that presence in a lot of action stuff. But there's technical aspects to all of this as well. I think people can be kind of funny people, or they can be naturally very serious, or naturally this, that, or the other thing. But there are certain techniques and technicalities to how you do it in front of a camera, and how you do it reliably, and how you do it repeatedly. Because I think everyone's got their funny moments, and everyone has their very deep emotional moments, and they might gear more towards that in their life, kind of 24/7. I'm finding that even though I probably could do this and I could do that, I didn't have a really good technical understanding of what it meant to be funny. And so that's a big part of what I'm trying to do, is actually develop the understanding and the actual nuance of how can you make someone laugh 10 times in a row. And that's why it was like, I'm going to do some stand-up comedy, or I'm going to start writing sitcoms, or I'm going to go do some improv, all these things, because there are actually tools around the whole thing. Because I think there are some people who are naturally very funny that it doesn't translate at all on camera. And I think there are people who have an amazing sense of humor that don't know how to get it across unless you have a similar sense of humor. So for me, it's not just about my desire to go be funny. It's actually, I want to learn how to do this reliably, because at the end of the day, in front of the camera, it's got to translate to the audience.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's just what I've focused on right now, is not, I just need more reps of getting laughs out of people. I need to understand how and why I can get those laughs repeatedly and do it really, really well over time. And for me, that comes through just training and repetitions.
You have an infectious confidence. I believe in most everything that I've watched you do. When you talk about recognizing that you have, can't remember the exact words you used, but things that you need to overcome or get better at, or that you're missing in your arsenal, what do you feel those things are? Or are they yet to be discovered? Or where are you struggling?
So for me, A huge part of why I actually wanted to start improv is I really don't have any desire to perform improv in front of a crowd. For me, it was to stop trying to control people's perceptions of me and to start just being very active in the moment. I find just by my nature being someone who likes to plan and someone who likes to do a lot of stuff, with that comes this weird side effect of being mildly type A and controlling here and there. And so when it comes to having a real, true, honest emotion repeatedly on stage or on camera, it has to occur there. It has to occur in that moment. And so for me, that's a huge. I'm not going to say it's a flaw. It's something that I can hit sometimes and not other times, and that's not good. And so one of the reasons I'd like to do a lot more of that is because I find presence is something I probably struggle with because I'm so used to over preparing and over training for things. And so, yeah, if there's a weakness, that's it. It's be 100% vulnerable. Be prepared to be embarrassed. Be prepared to be the real you that you are in this moment, not the person you prepared to be, and do that repeatedly. And I'm getting more and more used to embarrassing myself, more and more used to being someone I'm not really personally in front of a camera. And if any, I know I'm having a hard time really articulating exactly what it is, but that's it. I think when you start acting, you kind of have this idea of who you want to be in front of the camera, and a lot of that's probably based on either how you perceive yourself or what you idealize about other people. And I did the same thing, and I'm now slowly whittling away where I'm going like, I don't care to be that guy. I just want to be as me as I possibly can be, and that takes more than anything a real honest reflection of myself over and over and over again. So most of it's not really technical stuff that I need to be doing. A lot of it's just I have to take a certain attitude into every project now of being as present as I can be and being okay being perceived in any way that I'm going to be perceived as long as it kind of serves the purpose of the project. So I know it's a vague answer, but a big part of the answer for me is it's self-discovery and getting really good at being present and just forgetting about, judging myself, judging other people, judging my character, and just actually showing up and doing great human work.
I think it's a very articulate answer, because I think where folks will probably align and feel very similar or the same is that construction of self, that playing the director to your own acting, the omniscient sort of, habits that we get into when we think we know who we are beyond the eyeballs. And I mean, really, I don't think it's much of our business. Not in order to be authentic anyways.
Yeah.
There has to be that flow, I think, or that's what I'm hearing you say.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I think that's a self-awareness that's very mature at this stage of.
Yeah, and you know what? I think there's self-awareness used to be something I really idealized, and I think I now perceive self-awareness as being step one. And I don't know what all of the steps are by any means, but being aware of yourself is really what is necessary to then go be comfortable with any version of yourself. That's the part I'm working on.
Right.
In the most fundamental way. I think I am extremely self-aware, sometimes to a fault, but I think being self-aware to the point where you're not judging it is really it's a next step, and that's what I'm actively working on. Is when I show up on set and I have to do something, say something, be someone, look like someone that I haven't before. It's getting to the point of kind of internalizing that and that being me and me really having that presence and being that person. That's kind of, it's a form of self-awareness to become someone else and be 100% okay with it and to really step into that role. Again, I'm not articulating it overly well, but
I'm reading that page, and I think it's a great explanation. Have you found in any of your work lately where you have been able to let go and be vulnerable within it, not just in practice, but like?
Yeah. You know what? Oddly enough, I did this commercial audition 2 weeks ago that I got a little bit nervous for, and I don't get nervous typically. And I remember going, like, having an ideal of self-awareness, I kind of went, I'm feeling nervous. Why?
Yeah,
Not
yeah.
like the technicalities of why, because it's not as if I'm afraid of failing. I'm going like, what about this is making you nervous when like you've been in much higher pressure situations? And it was because essentially what they wanted me to do was to become a human montage. I had to become 11 people in a row, no cuts, no breaks. It was a commercial for a wireless company. And they essentially said you need to be the host, but then it's going to be, you've got to be the host, and then you've got to be Albert Einstein, and then you got to be Sherlock Holmes, and then you got to be a teenager, and then you got to be a pig farmer, and then you got to be a tree hugger, and then you got to be a dentist, and then you got to be this. And it was literally, I went, you just want me to go for it. And I had lines as all those characters, different accents, different postures, different all these things. And I mean, one of the fundamental things about becoming a character is that they don't know they're a character. Right? They don't know that you're putting them on, you know? So like Einstein isn't aware of his accent, he isn't aware of his hair, he isn't aware of all these things, right? Sherlock Holmes isn't aware of his mannerisms. And so I found myself kind of nervous for it because I was going to be I felt like I wanted to be a little kid and be goofy and laugh about the whole thing. But I was like, no, that's not what they want. Like each of these characters, you just have to turn it on and go on to the next one quick, 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 like this. And then I had to, and I did it for a self-tape, and then I got a call back, and they wanted me to do the exact same thing live, right? And I'm going like, because I just edited it well in the self-tape, but then live, he was like, all right, let's go. There's 3 pages of dialogue of you as 11 different characters. And I remember afterwards being like, oh, you know what, that was actually really informative for me, because one of the things I have a hard time with, I think, is just snapping into a character without exploring and judging and controlling and creating something into that. Whereas when there's a character sitting there, like it literally would say in the script, like, do it as Sherlock Holmes. I just kind of had to be like, I'm just going to that, right? That's what I'm doing. I have to turn it on like that. I don't remember your question at this point.
Well, the question was, have you found success in the vulnerability and letting go in anything lately?
Yeah, and that, to be fair, that made me do it. Because if I stopped each time and kind of reviewed my plan and how I'm going to really do this thing, rather than just going and being that thing, I think it really would have messed me up. Right? Because it was a 90-second take that it was just like, go, 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 jump to this person, jump to that person. They literally said, all I want you to do is look away from the camera, look back as the new character. Right? And I'm like, it's the kind of thing you would see in like a strange, you know, like talent show or whatever. But it really actually, it made me go like, yeah, you can't think about this. Like you just got to go and not worry because you're going to mess up a character or some lines or something. Like it's just such this weird, big, complex thing they want you to do that like, you can't worry about it, man. You just got to show up and be there and be those characters to the best of your ability. And I made them laugh, and they clearly enjoyed it, and it was a good time. I don't think I got the part, and I mean, it's 2 weeks ago. I assume I would have heard, but I remember afterwards going, no, that was good. Like that was fun. And I think the speed and the complexity of it made it so that I didn't have the chance to kind of retreat into my process and retreat into controlling things and retreat into worrying about perceptions, because it literally had to be rapid fire, which was good for me.
That's cool. That sounds like a lot of fun.
It was.
Speaking of fun, what has been your most fun role to date?
The last role that I did on Movie of the Week was the funnest role I've had. And probably, I wonder who's going to watch this. We'll see. It was kind of a Hallmark movie, a Christmas movie, but the whole premise of this movie is that the lead female got dropped into a town that was a looping Christmas movie. And she hates Christmas movies, and she's the main character. So everyone in this entire town is constantly in a Christmas movie. And so my role in that was to be this like really melodramatic knight in shining armor who was a doctor. So literally anytime a female is about to fall over, I magically appear and catch them before they hit the ice. Or like anytime anyone has a dramatic problem, I show up and solve it in really, stern fashion. And so it was so fun for me because it was really kind of poking fun at the whole thing. And everyone on set knew that, all the cast knew that, the writers knew that. It was even in the script, like if this is too on the nose, here's an alternate for you. And I just had so much fun because I got to be really ridiculous and really fully a character. And a lot of the time, comedy is about commitment, right? It's 100% on this thing. And even though it was a Christmas movie of the week, I got to be that. I got to show up and just do these ridiculous things and be fully committed in the moment. And it was it was really fun. It was one of the funnest. And to be fair, like everything was fun about that shoot. Like the crew was great, the cast was great, everyone was in a good mood the vast majority of the time. The usual happened in that it was long days and those sorts of things, but it was really, really fun. But it was really cool to be able to be a character that just, my character doesn't know that he's being dramatic. He doesn't know that he's the knight in shining armor. He doesn't know all these things. He's just being that. And it was very theatrical and it was really fun.
The name of that movie?
The name of that movie is It's Like a Christmas Movie.
So, often they do change the titles on these, and we will put a link down below once it is available. But It's Like a Christmas Movie.
Yeah.
Look for our friend Ben Stevens.
Or Just Like a Christmas Movie or something
Just like a
that.
Christmas movie.
Yeah, the leads in it are Brad and Marley, who are wonderful to work with.
And like I said, we will have a link for it. Before I let you go, though, we have to play a game.
Uh-oh. Yahtzee!
And it's not Yahtzee. Well, maybe it's a close cousin. So you come home and your wife and your daughter are not there. You go outside, your neighbors aren't there. You drive downtown, nobody exists anymore. And all you're left with to communicate or have any sort of relationship is 5 movies. You get to choose 5 movies.
Meaning 5 movies that like I could show or send to other people, or 5 that's
There's
just
no people.
my interaction with the world is through 5 movies.
You get 5 movies to watch. Okay?
Interesting. Yep.
So cue the music, and you get 10 seconds. Give me 5 movies, starting now.
Scott Pilgrim versus the World. Out Cold, which is an old snowboard movie. The Matrix, because I love the idea behind it. How to Train Your Dragon, because it's ridiculous and I like kids' movies. Let me see. I'm having a hard time with coming up with the last one. It's been more than 10 seconds. One of the Avengers movies, because I love superheroes. Doesn't matter which one. I like all of them.
That's a pretty good list. I would be okay with that.
Yeah.
I don't want to be alone in the world, but if I was, I would be happy to watch those. Hey man, thanks for dropping by.
Thanks for having me.
Really looking forward to seeing the work that you've been doing and seeing it come up. And we will cut there.
And cut.
Cut.